everyone, All in Arrowhead here. Week 10 delivered another thrilling round of NFL action. A mix of offensive explosions, defensive standouts, and nail-biting finishes that kept the playoff race as unpredictable as ever. Some of my picks hit the mark, while a few games went completely off script, showing just how thin the margin for error is this deep into the season. The Rams continued their impressive surge with a statement win over the 49ers, powered by Matthew Stafford's precision passing and Kyren Williams' relentless ground attack, while the Seahawks kept pace atop the NFC West with a dominant performance against the Cardinals, highlighted by big plays from Jackson Smith and Jigba and a defense that forced timely turnovers. In the AFC, the Dolphins outlasted the Bills behind Tua Tagovailoa's efficiency and a balanced offensive rhythm, while the Texans rode Davis Mills' poise and a late touchdown to take down the Jaguars, highlighted by Jacksonville's offensive collapse. The Broncos leaned on their defense to edge out the Raiders in a gritty contest, and the Patriots continued their steady run with a clutch win over the Buccaneers that showed their resilience on both sides of the ball. Week 10 reminded everyone that no lead is ever safe, and no matchup is guaranteed. Contenders can stumble, and underdogs can flip the narrative in a single quarter. With the Colts and Saints on bye in Week 11, the rest of the league has a chance to either build separation or claw back into playoff contention as the intensity ramps up. From crucial divisional clashes to emerging playoff storylines, Week 11 is shaping up to be another defining stretch in this chaotic season. Let's get into the games! The New York Jets enter Week 10 riding the momentum of a gritty 27-20 triumph over the Cleveland Browns, a game in which special teams swung their early tide. Isaiah Williams' 74-yard punt return and Keenan Nwangwu's 99-yard kickoff return set the tone, as QB Justin Fields managed a 6 of 11 passing for 54 yards, 1 touchdown, and an interception, while running back Breece Hall paced the ground attack with 83 yards and added a receiving touchdown. Despite a dominant time of possession by the Browns and 278 total net yards, the Jets' opportunistic plays and tight defense forced key stops and flipped the narrative of the season. On the flip side, the New England Patriots head into this matchup off a commanding 28-23 win over the Buccaneers, where rookie running back TreVeyon Henderson erupted for 147 rushing yards and 2 long touchdown runs. Wide receiver Kyle Williams made a splash with a 72-yard touchdown catch, and QB Drake May posted 16 of 31 for 270 yards and 2 scores, as the Patriots piled up 435 total net yards and held Tampa Bay to just 371. Their defense came up with critical stops, including key fourth down stands, demonstrating both explosive offense and situational poise. This one comes down to the Jets leaning into their special teams edge and opportunistic defense versus the Patriots' explosive playmakers and well-rounded attack. I'm projecting a Patriots victory and an improving mark to 9-2, while the Jets slide to 2-8. The Washington Commanders head to Madrid for this international showdown, looking to bounce back after a brutal 44-22 loss to the Detroit Lions, a game that quickly spiraled out of control on both sides of the ball. Washington's defense simply couldn't keep up with Detroit's rhythm. Jared Goff dissected the secondary for over 300 yards, while running back Jahmyr Gibbs powered through with 142 yards and 2 touchdowns. The Commanders' front seven, normally a strength, was pushed around up front, and explosive plays from Jameson Williams and Amon-Ra St. Brown exposed a secondary that struggled all season. Offensively, Marcus Mariota put up some solid numbers, throwing for 213 yards and 2 touchdowns, but key turnovers and penalties stunted drives, and the team's body language late in the game reflected the frustration of a season slipping away. Meanwhile, the Miami Dolphins come into this matchup energized after a 30-13 statement win over the Buffalo Bills. Tua Tagovailoa looked sharp and efficient, spreading the ball around to Jalen Waddle, while Devon Achane stole the show with 174 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns, using his speed to shred Buffalo's front. Miami's defense complemented the offensive fireworks perfectly, forcing 3 turnovers and consistently collapsing the pocket on Josh Allen. With the Dolphins' offense firing on all cylinders and the Commanders' defense reeling, this matchup in Madrid feels lopsided on paper. Miami has the balance, the speed, and the confidence edge heading into this one. I'm taking the Dolphins to keep things rolling and climb to 4-7, while Washington's struggles continue as they fall to 3-8. The Green Bay Packers arrive for their Week 11 showdown on a somber note after falling 10-7 to the Philadelphia Eagles, a game defined by defensive dominance on both sides and key mistakes at the finish line. Quarterback Jordan Love completed 20 of 36 passes for 176 yards, while running back Josh Jacobs carried the ball 21 times for 74 yards and scored Green Bay's only touchdown. Despite controlling the ball and limiting turnovers, the Packers couldn't crack Philadelphia's red zone defense and came up short on the game-winning drive when the field goal attempt fell just shy. On the other side, the New York Giants are reeling after a crushing 24-20 collapse at the hands of the Chicago Bears, an all too familiar story for the franchise in the final quarter of games. Rookie quarterback Jackson Dart left the game with a concussion, veteran Russell Wilson took over but couldn't find the spark, and the defense surrendered 2 late touchdown drives, won a 17-yard scramble by Bears QB Caleb Williams. In the wake of the loss, the Giants fired head coach Brian Daboll, ushering in offensive coordinator Mike Kafka as interim and signaling a full reset. For Green Bay, the chance to rebound against a franchise in transition is clear, but the Packers must find consistency in the red zone and tighten up their finishing sequence. I'm picking the Packers to capitalize here and move to 6-3-1, while the Giants begin a new chapter and slide to 2-9. The Houston Texans head into Week 11 with renewed energy and confidence after a thrilling 36-29 comeback win over the Jaguars, a game that showed real growth on both sides of the ball. With CJ Stroud still out, Davis Mills delivered one of the best performances of his career, throwing for 292 yards and 2 touchdowns while adding a rushing score to complete the 19-point comeback. Veteran Nico Collins led the way, catching 7 balls for 136 yards to extend drives and keep the pressure on Jacksonville's defense. Woody Marks provided balance with 63 tough rushing yards, helping the Texans control the clock down the stretch. Defensively, Houston bent early but didn't break. Azeez Al-Shaair led the way with 8 total tackles, Danielle Hunter led the team in sacks with 3.5, and Sheldon Rankins sealed the win with a fumble recovery return for a touchdown that sent NRG Stadium into a frenzy. The Titans, meanwhile, are coming off their bye week following a 27-20 loss to the Chargers in Week 9, where their offense once again struggled to find rhythm. Cam Ward threw for just 145 yards, and while the defense did sack Justin Herbert 6 times, they couldn't get the crucial third down stop when it mattered. Tennessee's ground game, led by Tyjae Spears, never found traction, and their red zone inefficiency remains a recurring issue. Even with a week to regroup, the Titans look overmatched against a Texan squad building momentum and belief. I'm taking Houston to stay hot and move to 5-5, while Tennessee continues its skid to 1-9. The Carolina Panthers enter Week 11 looking to bounce back after a disappointing 17-7 loss to the New Orleans Saints, a game where the offense simply couldn't find its rhythm. Quarterback Bryce Young struggled under constant pressure, completing 17 of 25 passes for 124 yards and an interception, while the run game provided little relief as Rico Dowdle rushed for less than 60 yards. Despite a solid defensive effort, the secondary gave up an early 62-yard touchdown bomb from rookie quarterback Tyler Shuck to Chris Olave that put them in a hole they never climbed out of. The Falcons, meanwhile, fell in a 31-25 overtime thriller to the Indianapolis Colts in Berlin, a game that showcased flashes of promise but also recurring late-game breakdowns. Michael Penix Jr. continued to show his poise, throwing for 177 yards and a touchdown, while Bijan Robinson was the offensive catalyst once again, totaling 84 yards. Atlanta's defense made life difficult for Daniel Jones, recording 7 sacks and forcing consistent third down pressure, but the unit wore down as overtime loomed. The Falcons' inconsistency in closing out games remains their biggest obstacle, while the Panthers are desperate to reestablish balance and confidence on offense. If Carolina can clean up its protection and open more lanes for Dowdle, they have a lot of tools to get back on track. I'm picking the Panthers to edge out a narrow victory and climb to 6-5, while the Falcons drop to 3-7 as their late-game woes continue. The Chicago Bears enter Week 11 riding the momentum of a gritty 24-20 win over the Giants, a performance that once again showcased their growing maturity and resilience under head coach Ben Johnson. Caleb Williams was poised and efficient, throwing for 220 yards and a touchdown while spreading the ball around to multiple receivers. Standout receiver Rome Odunze continued to impress, making clutch catches in key third down situations, while DeAndre Swift provided balance to the offense with 80 rushing yards. Chicago's offensive line held up well against the Giants' front, giving Williams time to operate, and the defense stepped up late with 2 crucial sacks and a game-sealing turnover to close out the win. The Vikings, meanwhile, suffered a tough 27-19 loss to the Ravens in a game that exposed both their potential and their growing pains. J.J. McCarthy threw for 248 yards and a touchdown, but 2 interceptions proved costly, especially one in the red zone that flipped momentum in the second half. Jalen Nailor, Justin Jefferson, and Jordan Addison all made plays downfield, yet the ground game struggled again, forcing the second-year quarterback to shoulder too much of the offense. Minnesota's defense started strong but faded late, allowing an 11-play touchdown drive that put the game out of reach. With Chicago playing some of its most complete football of the season and Williams showing steady leadership, the Bears look well positioned to pull out another divisional win and move to 7-3, while the Vikings fall to 4-6 in what's becoming a crowded NFC playoff picture. The Los Angeles Chargers head into their Week 11 matchup riding the momentum of a convincing 25-10 win over the Pittsburgh Steelers, a performance marked by solid all-around execution on both sides of the ball. Justin Herbert orchestrated the offense efficiently, completing 20 of 33 passes for 220 yards and a touchdown. Receivers Ladd McConkey and Quentin Johnston combined for 149 total receiving yards, while the ground game led by Kamani Vidal chipped in to keep the Steelers off balance. Defensively, Los Angeles limited Pittsburgh to just 221 total yards, forced turnovers, and dominated time of possession. Exactly the kind of comprehensive showing you need when you want to keep up with a stacked AFC West division. On the other side, the Jacksonville Jaguars are coming off a brutal 36-29 collapse against the Houston Texans, where they surrendered 26 unanswered points in the fourth quarter, including a fumble return touchdown on the final play, turning a comfortable 29-10 lead into a franchise-worst blown advantage. Jacksonville's offense moved the ball early but stalled when it mattered, with multiple red zone trip failures and passive pass rush allowing the Texans to stay alive. With Los Angeles showing balance and poise and Jacksonville still shaken from its meltdown, the edge clearly belongs to the Chargers. I'm picking the Chargers to win this one and advance to 8-3, while the Jaguars fall to 5-5. Tampa Bay Buccaneers enter Week 11 reeling from a 28-23 loss to the New England Patriots that laid bare both their offensive inconsistency and defensive lapses. Baker Mayfield was efficient, completing 28 of 43 passes for 273 yards and 3 touchdowns, while connecting with Emeka Egbuka 6 times for 115 yards and a score. Yet despite the performance, Tampa Bay struggled to sustain momentum, allowing the Patriots to flip the script with a 72-yard touchdown connection between Drake May and Kyle Williams, and 2 long touchdown runs of 55 and 69 yards by Travion Henderson. The Buccaneers' defense managed a key interception by Tyke Smith, but too often surrendered big plays and failed to consistently pressure May or stop New England's explosive backside. On the flip side, the Buffalo Bills looked to regroup after a surprising 30-13 defeat to the Miami Dolphins, a game where running back Devon Achane exploded for 174 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns, while Josh Allen threw for 306 yards and 2 scores, but also committed a fumble and was intercepted. Buffalo's offense failed to find traction early, actually failing to get a first down until the third quarter at one point, and their defense, typically a strength, gave up 370 total yards and allowed the longest rushing touchdown of the season so far. With both teams facing pivotal stretch run moments, it will come down to how well Tampa Bay can shore up their secondary and protect Mayfield, and whether Buffalo can rebound from a humbling loss by resetting mentally and physically on both sides of the ball. I'm leaning toward Tampa Bay to leverage their offensive firepower, moving them to 7-3 while the Bills fall to 6-4 as they search for answers. The Cincinnati Bengals enter Week 11 trying to regroup after a chaotic 47-42 loss to the Chicago Bears in Week 9 that once again highlighted their defensive inconsistency. Joe Flacco threw for 470 yards and 4 touchdowns, connecting often with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins in a game that turned into a shootout from the opening quarter. However, the Bengals' secondary was picked apart repeatedly, and the front seven struggled to contain the Bears' run game, ultimately allowing a 58-yard touchdown with under 20 seconds left to seal the defeat. Cincinnati's defense looked explosive, but the lack of balance and inability to close out games continues to haunt them. Meanwhile, the Pittsburgh Steelers are coming off a frustrating 25-10 loss to the Los Angeles Chargers, where Aaron Rodgers was under constant duress, throwing 2 interceptions and finishing with just over 160 passing yards as the offense sputters throughout. Pittsburgh's defense held up for most of the first half, but they eventually wore down as Los Angeles controlled the tempo and piled up long drives. Mike Tomlin's group now finds themselves at a crossroads, needing to rediscover their physical edge and establish more consistency on the ground with Jaylen Warren to ease the pressure on Rodgers. The Bengals, despite their struggles, still possess the firepower to challenge any secondary, but their inability to protect leads and lack of defensive discipline could prove costly once again. This matchup feels like a gritty AFC North battle where turnovers and clock control will decide the outcome. And with Pittsburgh's veteran leadership and steadier defensive front, I'm picking the Steelers to bounce back and move to 6-4, while Cincinnati falls to 3-7. The 49ers come into Week 11 looking to regroup after a rough 42-26 loss to the Rams that exposed some major cracks on both sides of the ball. Mac Jones had solid numbers on paper, 319 yards and 3 touchdowns, but the offense lacked rhythm for most of the afternoon. George Kittle remained a bright spot, catching 9 passes for 84 yards and a touchdown, while Christian McCaffrey added 96 scrimmage yards, continuing his case as one of the NFL's most versatile weapons. Still, the offensive line struggled to contain the Rams' defense, led by Quentin Lake and Nate Landman, leading to multiple stalled drives and missed opportunities in the red zone. Defensively, San Francisco was surprisingly flat, giving up 401 total yards, 4 passing touchdowns for Matthew Stafford, and 2 rushing scores to Kyren Williams. The tackling and communication issues in the secondary were glaring, something Kyle Shanahan will have to address quickly to keep the team in the NFC playoff picture. On the other side, the Cardinals are also coming off a tough outing, a 44-22 loss to Seattle that highlighted their offensive inconsistency and defensive collapse. Jacoby Brissett threw for 258 yards and 2 touchdowns, but faced constant pressure, getting sacked 5 times and struggling to sustain drives. The defense, meanwhile, surrendered over 430 yards and allowed Zach Charbonnet and Jackson Smith-Njigba to take over the game, with 2 costly turnovers leading directly to Seahawks touchdowns. Both teams desperately need a bounce back, but the 49ers' talent edge, particularly with McCaffrey and Kittle, should prove decisive. I'm taking San Francisco to rebound and improve to 7-4, while Arizona drops to 3-7 and continues to search for answers. The NFC West's top 2 teams, the Seattle Seahawks and Los Angeles Rams, clash in Week 11 after electric Week 10 performances that set the stage for one of the most anticipated matchups of the season. Seattle stormed past the Arizona Cardinals 44-22, exploding to a 35-0 halftime lead behind a pair of scoop-and-score touchdowns from DeMarcus Lawrence,
a 43-yard strike from Sam Darnold to Jackson Smith and Jigba, and a relentless ground attack featuring Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker, who shredded Arizona's front seven for chunk gains all afternoon. Seattle's defense swarmed Jacoby Brissett, tallying 5 sacks and consistently winning at the line of scrimmage, showcasing the unit's growing identity as one of the league's most opportunistic. Meanwhile, the Rams crushed the San Francisco 49ers 42-26 in a dominant display of balance and precision, as Matthew Stafford put on a clinic with 4 touchdown passes, spreading the ball between Devontae Adams and Puka Nacua, while Kyren Williams powered through with 2 red zone scores to keep San Francisco chasing all game. The Rams' defense stepped up when needed, forcing multiple turnovers, including a crucial fourth-quarter interception that sealed the victory. Now both teams sit at 7-2, deadlocked atop the NFC West and eyeing not just division supremacy, but potential playoff seeding down the stretch. Seattle's big play defense and explosive skilled talent give them a fighting chance in any game, but the Rams' offensive rhythm and clutch execution have been on another level in recent weeks. With both teams surging, this one could come down to turnovers and composure late, but Los Angeles' efficiency in high-pressure moments gives them the edge. I'm taking the Rams to pull ahead and move to 8-2, while Seattle slips to 7-3. The Kansas City Chiefs return from their bye week looking to rebound from that frustrating 28-21 loss to the Bills in Week 9, a game that exposed some of their offensive inconsistencies. Patrick Mahomes threw for 250 yards but completed less than half his passes, and Kansas City went just 3 for 13 on third down while settling for too many punts. The defense struggled to contain Josh Allen, giving up touchdowns on every Buffalo red zone trip and failing to generate consistent pressure. The bye came in an ideal time for Andy Reid's squad, who now have a chance to reset, get Travis Kelce and the offensive line healthy, and refocus on tightening up execution before the playoff push. Denver, meanwhile, escaped Week 10 with a gritty 10-7 win over the Raiders that was anything but pretty. Bo Nix did just enough to manage the game, throwing for 150 yards, a touchdown, and an interception, but the Broncos' offense sputtered for most of the night, relying heavily on their defense to bail them out. That unit was terrific again, holding the Raiders under 75 rushing yards, forcing multiple 3-and-outs, and making key stands late to preserve the victory. Still, their offensive rhythm remains a major concern against higher-level opponents. With Mahomes coming off extra rest and a motivated Chiefs team ready to reassert its dominance in the AFC West, this feels like the perfect get-right spot. I'm taking Kansas City to bounce back and improve to 6-4, while Denver drops to 8-3.
The Ravens picked up a much-needed win in Week 10, taking down the Vikings 27-19 in a game that showcased a balanced offensive attack and timely defensive stops. Lamar Jackson played one of his cleaner games of the year, completing 17 of 29 passes for 176 yards and a touchdown while avoiding turnovers. And Derrick Henry continued to be the workhorse with 75 rushing yards that helped Baltimore control the pace of the game. Wide receiver Zay Flowers made an impact on crucial third downs, hauling in 4 catches for 75 yards, and tight ends Charlie Kolar and Isaiah Likely served as a reliable safety valve over the middle. Defensively, Baltimore stepped up when it mattered. Malachi Starks' interception late in the second quarter halted a promising Vikings drive, and Keandre Jackson's forced fumble in the third quarter swung momentum firmly in the Ravens' favor. The pass rush was effective throughout, keeping J.J. McCarthy under pressure and limiting explosive plays. Meanwhile, the Browns dropped another tough one, losing 27-20 to the Jets despite flashes of improvement on offense. Dylan Gabriel threw for 167 yards and 2 touchdowns, but struggled to consistently sustain drives, while Quinshon Judkins ran hard for 75 yards and helped keep Cleveland within striking distance. Myles Garrett and the defense provided steady pressure and some big stops, but untimely penalties and red zone inefficiency proved costly down the stretch. With this win, the Ravens look to be finding better rhythm on both sides of the ball, while the Browns continue to struggle to find consistency. I'm taking Baltimore to build on their momentum and improve to 5-5, while Cleveland falls further to 2-8.
Detroit Lions come into this Week 11 matchup full of confidence after a dominant 44-22 victory over the Washington Commanders. Quarterback Jared Goff was in total command, throwing for 320 yards and 3 touchdowns, while running back Jahmyr Gibbs powered the ground game with 142 rushing yards and 3 total scores. Jameson Williams continued to show his big play ability, hauling in 6 passes for 119 yards and a touchdown, and Detroit's offensive line once again imposed its will, opening lanes and giving Goff clean pockets all afternoon. The defense complemented that effort perfectly, forcing multiple turnovers and keeping Washington's offense out of rhythm from start to finish. Meanwhile, the Philadelphia Eagles are coming off a narrow 10-7 win over the Green Bay Packers, a gritty defensive effort highlighted by key sacks and a late takeaway by Reed Blankenship. Jalen Hurts connected with Devontae Smith for a 36-yard score, but the offense struggled to sustain drives against Green Bay's front, relying heavily on its defense to secure the win. This week's matchup presents a true test of strengths. Detroit's fast-paced, balanced attack against an Eagles defense built to frustrate quarterbacks and win at the line of scrimmage. But with the Lions firing on all cylinders, especially in the run game and red zone, I'm giving the edge to Detroit. I think the Lions' offensive balance and defensive opportunism will carry them past the Eagles as they move to 7-3, while Philadelphia falls to 7-3. The Dallas Cowboys enter Week 11 rested after their bye, but still searching for answers following a frustrating 27-17 loss to the Cardinals in Week 9. Dak Prescott had an up-and-down performance, throwing for 250 yards and a touchdown, but also tossing a costly interception that halted a key fourth-quarter drive. Javonte Williams never found rhythm on the ground, finishing with just 83 yards, and the offense as a whole struggled to sustain drives, converting only 5 of 12 third-down attempts. Defensively, Dallas couldn't contain Arizona's ground attack, allowing Amari DiMercado to rush for over 75 yards, while the secondary gave up several chunk plays that kept the Cardinals comfortably ahead. The Raiders, meanwhile, come in after an ugly 10-7 loss to the Broncos in a game where neither side's offense found traction. Quarterback Geno Smith threw for just under 150 yards and an interception, while the run game was held to 74 yards total, with Ashton Jeanty leading the way with 60, as the offense went 4 for 15 on third down. The Las Vegas defense only racked up 2 sacks, and even though they kept things close, they couldn't generate a takeaway or capitalize on field position, leaving points on the board in a winnable game. The Cowboys' bye week should give them a needed reset and a chance to clean up red zone execution, while the Raiders' offense continues to sputter with no clear rhythm or explosiveness. I'm taking Dallas to bounce back with a sharper performance and improve to 4-5-1, while the Raiders slide further to 2-8.